I paid half the cost to fix our shared fence. A week later, my neighbor built over it, took 3 feet of my yard, and posted a sign, "Private property, keep out." When I called him out, he grinned, "Should have measured it yourself." I hired a surveyor, and when the report came back. I live in a modest house in Lawport, Indiana. It's quiet here, and most people mind their own business. I've owned my place for a little over a decade. It's not big, 2 bedrooms, a small backyard, nothing fancy. But it's mine, and I worked my ass off to buy it. My backyard was always my little escape. I kept it clean, grew tomatoes and peppers every summer, and even built a small patio a few years back. I've always taken pride in it. My property line is marked clearly on my deed, and I've had the same fence for years, an old wooden thing that leaned a bit but did the job. Then last year, Dave moved in next door. I didn't think much of him at first. He was loud. Truck with modified exhaust, always revving it up at 7 a.m., blasting country music while working on his lawn. He was one of those guys who always had something to say but never listened. Still, I tried to stay neighborly. We talked now and then, weather, sports, usual stuff. Then in late March, we had a storm that knocked down the old fence. I came out the next morning, and most of it was lying in my yard. Honestly, I was kind of relieved. I'd been thinking about replacing it anyway. That same afternoon, Dave walked over. "You gonna fix that fence?" he asked, pointing at the mess. "Yeah," I said. "Been putting it off too long." "I got a buddy," he said. "Does work on the cheap. We can split the cost." I was surprised. I hadn't expected him to offer that. I asked what it had cost, and he quoted about $1,200 total. I agreed. Wrote him a check for $600 that day. A few days later, his guy showed up. Older man, worked fast. I was at work most of the day, so I didn't watch him build it. By the time I got home, the fence was up. Clean job. New wood. Looked fine from my window. I didn't measure. I didn't think I had to. Then, one morning the next week, I saw something that stopped me cold. A big metal sign on the new fence, "Private property, keep out." I remember standing there on my patio, just staring at it. It looked off. Like it wasn't in the right place. I grabbed my tape measure and started from the back corner of my house, the same point I'd measured from when I planted my garden. And sure enough, 3 feet. 3 goddamn feet were gone. The fence was over the line. My line. I walked along it slowly, checking the spacing between the plants and the fence. Some of my backyard had literally been fenced into his yard. My small garden bed was basically pressed against the wood now. One of my plants had been chopped at the base. I knocked on Dave's door. He opened it with this smug little grin, like he already knew what I was gonna say. "You moved the fence," I told him. "That's not the property line." He didn't even hesitate. Just smirked wider and said, "Should have measured it yourself." Then he shut the door. That was it. No denial. No apology. No offer to fix it. I stood there for a full minute. I wanted to punch something. But I didn't. I went back home, sat down, and started calling surveyors. It took a week to get someone out. Older guy, very professional. He walked the property, pulled up the county records, and measured everything down to the inch. I stood out there with him as he explained it. "This fence is over the line," he said. "About 35 to 36 inches into your yard. It's not even close." He marked the true property line with flags and showed me where the fence should have gone. I went inside, sat at my kitchen table with the survey report in front of me, and just stared at it. The paper might as well have been glowing. All I could hear in my head was that smug little laugh of his. He knew. That bastard knew he was taking my land. And I knew then, I wasn't gonna let this go quietly. The next morning, I made a copy of the survey report and mailed a certified letter to Dave with a copy included. No threats, just the facts. The fence was on my property. He had 7 days to remove it, or I'd take legal action. He never responded. Instead, the following week, I came home to find he'd painted over the private property sign and replaced it with a bigger one: "Trespassers will be prosecuted." That was his answer. I called a lawyer. The consultation wasn't cheap, but the man knew what he was doing. He looked over the survey, the photos I'd taken, the check I'd written to pay for half the fence. "You've got a case," he said. "In fact, you've got a really good one." He drafted a formal demand letter, gave Dave 15 more days to either move the fence or we'd file a claim for encroachment and trespass. We served it directly. I paid extra to make sure Dave signed for it. This time, he responded by adding a camera. Mounted it right on his side of the new fence, pointed directly at my backyard. Like he was daring me to say something. Like this was all a joke to him. I didn't take the bait. We filed the lawsuit the following Monday. My lawyer called it a quiet title action, basically a request to the court to reaffirm my boundary and force Dave to move the fence. It also included a claim for damages, since he destroyed part of my garden and refused to correct the mistake. I figured once the paperwork hit, he'd back down. But no. Dave doubled down. He hired his own lawyer, some loudmouth from South Bend, who sent back a response saying the fence was installed in good faith and that Dave had a reasonable belief it was the correct line. That he'd spent money building it and was therefore entitled to keep it as is. My lawyer wasn't rattled. "Judges don't like this kind of thing," he said. "Especially not when we have proof he had you pay for half, and he never got a permit." Yeah. About that. Turns out, to build a fence in our town, you need a permit and a proper property survey. Dave had neither. The guy who built it wasn't licensed, and there was no record of the work being approved. We reported it to the county. They opened a code enforcement case. Meanwhile, the court date was set. Dave kept strutting around like nothing was happening. Sometimes I'd catch him outside, watering his lawn or messing with that damn truck, acting like king of the block. He thought I'd fold. He thought I'd just let him take part of my land because it wasn't worth the fight. But I kept going. I pulled up photos from my phone, old documents from when I bought the house, even an email from a landscaper I hired 5 years ago that showed the original fence line. Every little bit added weight to my side. Then the twist came. About 2 weeks before the court date, I noticed something new on the county's public records site. Dave had quietly tried to sell his house. Listed it off market with a local agent. I guess he thought he could bail before things got worse. But the listing didn't mention the boundary dispute. I sent that info straight to my lawyer, who sent it to the county inspector and flagged it with the real estate board. That shut the listing down real fast. Now Dave was stuck, with a lawsuit, a county investigation, and a property he couldn't sell. And we weren't even in court yet. Court was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Thursday. I took the day off work. Showed up early in a decent shirt, clean jeans, and a folder full of every piece of proof I had. My lawyer met me outside the courthouse, calm as ever. Said it would be a simple hearing. Dave rolled in 5 minutes late. Wore sunglasses and a faded "Don't Tread on Me" t-shirt, like he was going to a bar, not a legal dispute. His lawyer looked tired already. Inside, the judge, older guy, no nonsense, asked a few basic questions. Then he turned to me. "You're claiming your neighbor knowingly constructed a fence 3 feet into your property, is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you paid for half of it?" "Yes." "Did he provide you with any survey or plans prior to construction?" "No, sir." He nodded. Looked down at the papers. "And you have a licensed survey showing the encroachment?" I handed over the original report. My lawyer explained everything clearly. Dates, measurements, even the photos I took before and after the fence was installed. Dave's lawyer tried to argue it was an honest mistake. That moving the fence now would cause financial hardship. That I hadn't objected fast enough. The judge cut him off. "You don't get to steal land and call it a misunderstanding." Then he turned to Dave directly. "Did you pull a permit for the fence?" Dave just muttered, "No." "Did you have a survey done before building?" "No." The judge stared at him for a long second. Then said, "You're going to move the fence. All of it. At your cost. You will also reimburse the plaintiff for legal fees and damages for the destroyed garden. Do it within 30 days or I'll sign an order authorizing removal and lien your property for the cost." Dave didn't say a word. I thought that was the end of it. But it wasn't. 2 days later, I woke up to the sound of wood splintering. I ran outside and found a crew tearing down the fence. Fast, angry work. Dave stood nearby, arms crossed, glaring at me like I had wronged him. And then I saw what he was doing. He wasn't just removing the fence, he was having it rebuilt again. But this time, he was putting it exactly on the line. Right up to the inch. And higher. A full foot taller than the last one. Almost no gaps. Just a tall, imposing wall of wood. He didn't say a word. Just stood there watching. I could feel it. This wasn't over for him. He wasn't letting it go. I thought about letting it slide. Thought maybe this was his way of saving face. But then, 2 weeks later, I found my tomato plants uprooted. The hose nozzle I always left by the spigot? Gone. My motion light above the back door? Broken. Little things. But deliberate. Then the worst of it, my dog got sick. Vet said it was likely something he ate outside, some kind of chemical or bait. I couldn't prove anything. But I knew. I set up a camera. I didn't want to. I'm not the spying type. But I had to know. I installed it behind a bush, pointed at the fence. Set it to motion triggered. 4 nights in, I got a hit. At 2:13 a.m., Dave walked into frame with a spray can. He leaned over the fence and sprayed something into my garden bed. I couldn't see what it was, but I took that footage straight to the police. They said it wasn't enough to press charges, not without clearer proof or damage, but they'd speak to him. I knew what that meant, nothing. So I got smarter. I upgraded the cameras. I started recording every little thing. I kept notes. Times, dates, patterns. I even caught audio of him mocking me to one of his friends, took his land, took his money, now he's crying to the cops. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just a bad neighbor. This was personal for him. But now, it was personal for me too. I spent the next month building my case, not legal this time, just personal. Quiet. Focused. I wasn't trying to get even, not yet. I just wanted to keep watching. Recording. Documenting. And Dave didn't stop giving me material. He'd leave trash on my driveway. Stare at me through the slats of the new fence whenever I watered the lawn. One day, he revved his truck for 10 straight minutes at 6 a.m., backed it right up to the property line, and just let it idle. I didn't respond. That made him bolder. Then one Friday night, I caught him on camera again. He leaned over the fence and poured something onto my flower bed. I saw it the next morning, brown streaks in the soil, plants turning gray at the tips. My lawyer said to call the police again. So I did. This time, I had 2 videos. An officer came out. Looked at the footage. Took a sample of the soil. Said they'd open a report but couldn't promise much. Dave denied everything, of course. So I changed tactics. The next week, I filed a report with the HOA, not the neighborhood association, but the town zoning board. I'd been reading. Digging. Found out that Dave's giant new fence was actually too tall for the setback rules. Anything over 6 feet required a variance, and he never applied for one. I filed a complaint. Attached photos. Measurements. Timeline. They sent out an inspector. 2 weeks later, Dave got a notice taped to his front door. The fence was in violation. He had 30 days to lower it or remove it entirely. He stormed over to my yard that evening, red-faced and yelling. "You think you're smart? You think this is funny?" He screamed. I didn't say anything. I just smiled and shut my door. But he wasn't done. Not by a long shot. One night, about 10 days later, I came home from work and noticed something strange. My hose was running. Just full blast. Flooding the side of my house. I never leave it on. Then I saw the camera. Gone. The one facing the fence. Wire yanked clean. Bracket snapped. I checked the others. 2 of the 3 had been disabled. That's when I lost it. I filed a restraining order. It was a long process, had to go to court, show the judge all the videos, the logs, the reports. But eventually, they granted it. Dave was ordered to stay 25 feet away from my property line. No direct contact. No trespassing. He was officially, legally pinned. But then I got a call from the zoning board. Dave had filed a counter-complaint. Claimed I had an unpermitted shed. That my gutter downspout directed water into his yard. That I was the one harassing him. It was all lies. But I still had to deal with it. More inspections. More paperwork. More wasted time. It became clear, he was going to fight every inch. No matter what. No matter how small. This wasn't about the fence anymore. It was about control. But what he didn't realize was that I had one last card to play. Because remember that fake real estate listing he tried to sneak through months ago? Well, I reached out to the agent who posted it. At first, she didn't want to talk. But once I explained the lawsuit and the judgment, she got real quiet. Then she admitted, Dave told her the fence was corrected, and everything was resolved. It wasn't. He had lied. That meant his property disclosures, if he ever sold, would be fraudulent. That was leverage. Real leverage. I drafted a formal complaint with the State Real Estate Commission. Attached the emails. Timeline. Court orders. Survey. Everything. If he tried to sell that house again, I'd make sure every buyer knew exactly what kind of neighbor he was, and exactly what they were getting into. And maybe that's when he started to crack. Because after that, something changed. The lights stopped coming on at night. No more music. No more truck noise. His yard got messy. Overgrown. Then, last week, a for sale sign went up. Official this time. And I started preparing for what came next. The listing went live that Friday. I saw the sign first. Plain white with red lettering, stuck in his front lawn like a surrender flag. Then I checked the listing online. 3 photos. No interior shots. And a note, property line dispute resolved in 2024. Buyer to verify all boundaries. He was trying to wash his hands of it. The price was high, too high for what the house was worth. But I knew his game. He was hoping someone out of town would bite fast, maybe someone who wouldn't ask too many questions. But I wasn't done yet. That same day, I called a friend from high school. His cousin worked in local real estate, quiet, detail-oriented, and not afraid to ask tough questions. I didn't tell her what to do. I just asked her to book a showing and see what the disclosures looked like in person. She went 2 days later. Texted me that night, he's trying to hide everything. Says the fence was rebuilt by mutual agreement and that the garden issue was a misunderstanding. No mention of the restraining order. Nothing about the zoning fines. She gave me the name of the buyer's agent he was dealing with. I filed another complaint. This one went straight to the state board, with copies sent to the agent's managing broker. I attached everything, court documents, zoning violations, photos of the plants he destroyed, the property line markers still visible in my lawn. I also made a quiet call to the HOA, this time to ask if I could post my own sign on the edge of my lawn. Nothing rude. Just information. A few days later, a small wooden sign appeared on my side of the fence, visible to any prospective buyer, boundary restored by court order. Encroachment, chemical damage, and surveillance incidents documented since 2023. Full report available on request. And I did have it. A full report. Printed. Bound. Sitting in a weatherproof box right under the sign. 3 buyers canceled showings that week. Then the price dropped. Twice. I watched his frustration build. His lawn grew higher. The truck disappeared from the driveway. No lights in the windows. And then, one night, I saw a moving van. He didn't say goodbye. Didn't try anything. Just vanished. The house sat empty for weeks after. No new listings. No buyers. Eventually, the grass got so long the city tagged it. I watched from my window as they mowed it for a fine, their trucks loud and fast like they were erasing the last trace of him. It was quiet after that. Too quiet. I still check the fence sometimes, like it might move again when I'm not looking. I never rebuilt the garden. I thought I would, but I didn't. I think part of me needed that empty space to remember it happened. Not because I lost anything big, but because someone thought I didn't matter enough to ask.